Armenia is a landlocked country in the Transcaucasia region, between the Black and Caspian Seas, bordered on the north and east by Georgia and Azerbaijan and on the south and west by Iran and Turkey. The terrain is mostly mountainous and flat, with fast-flowing rivers and few forests but with many trees. The climate is highland continental, hot summers and cold winters. The land rises to 4,095 meters above sea level at Mount Aragats. Pollution from toxic chemicals such as DDT is not helping the already poor soil quality in many parts of the country. Armenia is trying to address its environmental problems. It has established a Ministry of Nature Protection and introduced taxes for air and water pollution and solid waste disposal, whose revenues are used for environmental protection activities. Armenia is interested in cooperating with other members of the Commonwealth of Independent States and with members of the international community on environmental issues. The Armenian government is working toward closing the Armenian nuclear power plant as soon as alternative energy sources are identified. Geographic coordinates: 40.000 degrees north, 45.000 degrees east, 40.000, 45.000. Physical environment. Armenia is located in southern Transcaucasia, the region southwest of Russia between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. Modern Armenia term means Republic of Armenia, which occupies part of historical Armenia, whose ancient centers were in the valley of the Araks River and the region around Lake Van in Turkey. Armenia is bordered on the north by Georgia, on the east by Azerbaijan, on the southwest by the Nagorno-Karabakh, on the south by Iran, and on the west by Turkey. Topography and drainage. 25 million years ago, a geological upheaval pushed up the Earth's crust to form the Armenian Plateau, creating the complex topography of modern Armenia. The Lesser Caucasus Range extends through northern Armenia, runs southeast between Lake Sevan and Azerbaijan, then passes roughly along the Armenian-Azerbaijani border to Iran. Thus situated, the mountains make travel from north to south difficult. Geological turmoil continues in the form of devastating earthquakes, which have plagued Armenia. In December 1988, the second largest city in the republic, Leninakan, was heavily damaged by a massive quake that killed more than 25,000 people. About half of Armenia's area of approximately 29,800 square kilometers has an elevation of at least 2,000 meters, and only 3% of the country lies below 650 meters. The lowest points are in the valleys of the Araks River and the The River in the far north, which have elevations of 380 and 430 meters, respectively. Elevations in the Lesser Caucasus vary between 2,640 and 3,280 meters. To the southwest of the range is the Armenian Plateau, which slopes southwestward toward the Araks River on the Turkish border. The plateau is masked by intermediate mountain ranges and extinct volcanoes. The largest of these, Mount Aragats, 4,095 meters high, is also the highest point in Armenia. Most of the population lives in the western and northwestern parts of the country, where the two major cities, Yerevan and Gyumri, are located. The valleys of the Tibet and Akstafa rivers form the chief routes into Armenia from the north as they pass through the mountains. Lake Sevan, 72.5 kilometers across at its widest point and 376 kilometers long, is by far the largest lake. It lies 2,070 meters above sea level on the plateau. Terrain is most rugged in the extreme southeast, which is drained by the Bargashat River, and most moderate in the Araks River valley to the extreme southwest. Most of Armenia is drained by the Araks or its tributary, the Razdan, which flows from Lake 7. The Araks forms most of Armenia's border with Turkey and Iran, while the Zangezur Mountains form the border between Armenia's southern province of Sinop and Azerbaijan's adjacent Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic. Climate. Temperatures in Armenia generally depend upon elevation. Mountain formations block the moderating climatic influences of the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea, creating wide seasonal variations with cold, snowy winters, and warm to hot summers. On the Armenian Plateau, the mean midwinter temperature is 0 degrees Celsius to -15 degrees Celsius, and the mean midsummer temperature is 15 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius. Average precipitation ranges from 250 mm per year in the lower Araks River Valley to 800 mm at the highest altitudes. Despite the harshness of winter in most parts and lower in Sharek region, the fertility of the plateau's volcanic soil made Armenia one of the world's earliest sites of agricultural activity. Environmental problems. A broad public discussion of environmental problems began in the mid-1980s, when the first green groups formed in opposition to Yerevan's intense industrial air pollution and to nuclear power generation in the wake of the 1986 reactor explosion at Chernobyl. Environmental issues helped form the basis of the nationalist independence movement when environmental demonstrations subsequently merged with those for other political causes in the late 1980s. Republics as they emerge from the centralized planning system's disastrous approach to resource management. By 1980, the infrequency of sightings of Mount Ararat, which looms about 60 kilometers across the Turkish border, became a symbol of worsening air pollution in Yerevan, in area and boundaries. Area. Total, 29,743 square kilometers. Country comparison to the world, 149 land, 28,454 square kilometers. Water, 1,289 square kilometers. Area comparative. Australia comparative, about one-third the size of Tasmania. Canada comparative, greater than half the size of Nova Scotia. United Kingdom comparative, about one-third larger than Wales. United States comparative, slightly smaller than Maryland. EU comparative, slightly smaller than Belgium. Land boundaries. Total, 1,570 kilometers. Border countries, Azerbaijan and Nagorno-Karabakh Republic proper 566 kilometers, Azerbaijan Nakhchivan exclave 221 kilometers, Georgia 219 kilometers, Iran 44 kilometers, Turkey 311 kilometers, coastline 0 kilometers. Maritime claims, non-elevation extremes, lowest point, Deep River 400 meters, highest point, Mount Aragats 4,090 meters, extreme points of Armenia, North Tavish, South Sinop, West Sharek, East Sinop,